Welcome to another Bandology interview. Bandology is a Canadian nonprofit dedicated to more music for more kids via education, collaboration, and community.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucas Redwood, and I'm the manager of music and learning with Bandology. I'm here today with Michel Bruyere. How are you doing today, Michel?
Hi, Lucas. I'm doing very well. I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's where I'm residing. And yeah, you're speaking to a drummer, musician, multi-talented, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Awesome. Happy to have you here. So, Michel, can you start off? Can you tell us a little bit about when you first started playing music?
Awesome. Well, here it is, like growing up in Winnipeg in the 1970s. I don't want to age myself, but yeah, you learn to discover things before technology came up. And I think a lot of us wanted to, we want to become teachers. I wanted to be an artist and stuff like that. And I remember we had music program in school. And I'll never forget walking by the music room and just being floored by horns and wood instruments, and then of course the drums were the loudest. So I really kind of clicked into that, and I kept doing this day and day. And then my first music teacher, Franco Cinfloni, I'll never forget his name. He said, "Hey, Michel, you got to get to class," because I started to be a little bit more late. And one day, Lucas, he called me down. All of a sudden, when you hear your name on the speaker, Michel Bruyere to the gymnasium. I'm like, all my friends are like, ooh, when you hear that, ooh.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my teacher going, what did I do? And she's like, I don't know. Well, you gotta go to the gym, Michel. So I walked down to the gym, grade 7. I walked to the gym, and there's Mr. Cinfloni, and he has all the instruments laid out, and of course, 2 drum sets facing each other. Well, of course, I'm gonna cling to the drum sets. There was no guitar or bass. There was no bass even, or else I might have been a guitar player, bass player. But to see 2 drum kits facing each other, well, I said to my teacher, I'd like to learn that, and he said, okay. So I got on a drum kit. He got on a drum kit, and he didn't teach me theory yet. We'll get into that in a second. He just played a basic beat, 1, 2, 3, and he said, "Can you play that? Can you?" And sure enough, Lucas, I did. I watched what he was doing. I think I just had that energy of watching them doing it, and I played the basic rock beat, would call it. And he says, "Do you want to be a part of the music program?" I said, "For sure." I was floored, and I was like, I had other dreams. Like I said, I was thinking I was going to be a artist, maybe an art teacher, but to be given that opportunity, where somebody like really takes upon like a mentoringship, was a huge deal for me. It was just like, wow, somebody's actually taking interest, taking an interest on me. And I said, yes, I'd love to be a part of the music program in grade 7. I went to go to speak to my counselor. We switched it up. Next day I was in the music program, and then came the music theory. Which he didn't talk to me about.
Oh yes, the music theory.
Yeah, because I come from the art class where you pick up paints and stuff, and again, like, you just use your imagination. Where this was a lot of discipline. This was like, oh wow, this is what you guys are actually doing. I didn't know that. I thought they were just playing some awesome music, jamming. And they're all sight reading, and they're all, what I love about that is like everybody has a part, but when they do it together, it turned out as a song. And so I was like, I got to do my part. But learning it, sitting there, trying to do my sight reading was very hard, because it's like homework, right? You got to go home with math and science, and all of a sudden music theory was in our school. So that's where it was, grade 7, and the love of a music program.
Very cool. Awesome story. And yeah, it's so important. Music theory is so interesting and so valuable to learn as a musician, for sure. We were talking just before we got on this interview about you were just recently on tour, and one of the musicians you tour with is Buffy Sainte-Marie, which is really cool. Can you talk a little bit about your experience touring with Buffy?
Oh my goodness. So I've been with Buffy Sainte-Marie for 12 years. If many of you don't know, maybe Google her. She's a very amazing artist herself. She's been in the business for 50 years, and that's long before I was born. And then I date myself because I look at myself going, well, I've been in the music business for 30 years. And so 12 years we've been together, Lucas, and it's just been one experience after the other, learning music, learning how to play with others, and then taking it to the next level, whether it's starting a band and going out on the road or going into whatever circuits there are. But when I got to that Buffy Sainte-Marie level, it was a new experience, another type of it was weird because you're playing with, I guess, the headliner, like you have to have that headliner space. And it was just a very, what's the word? It was a very great experience, like to have, to carry out knowledge to other players. I would always share other players, like how to be more disciplined, being prepared with songs and set list, and really being prepared for that, because it takes you to the next level. That's what I've learned with Buffy. I would question it back in my hotel room, maybe in the green room. Like we sometimes do these songs over and over again and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. When you're at that level and at that status, when you have hit songs and you have to play these hit songs for these fans, that's when you have to step back and understand that you're playing for the music again, as opposed to like you want things to be always current and stuff. And that's what I learned from Buffy is like, oh, we played these songs like I said for 12 years. So you get an understanding, right, Lucas? And like when you have a couple of hit songs, which I learned from her, and that's what I'll learn if I still want to, and which of course I still will, when I want to pursue songwriting. And if that song arises where it becomes a hit, I have to learn from my mentors, like to remember like how to appreciate that level of experience. So yeah, it's to work with those types of artists, it's definitely like you got to soak it in, and that's one thing I appreciate your channel, your bandology is these are important questions. These are important things to have, those IMC music camps, Sarah McLaughlin music schools. We never had that. I think the one thing that was missing, and maybe I'm sure we'll talk about this a bit later, is we learn so much about that musicality that we forget about ourselves as caretakers of our financials and our health and everything. The caretakers of ourselves, as opposed to just diving into all that influence out there, getting lost,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's super, as much as it's important, there's to be focused on the musical aspect of everything. There's equal importance to taking care of yourself and all of the different other aspects, life skills that you can learn with touring and doing all those different experiences.
You're so correct about that. Again, learning from Buffy Sainte-Marie at that level, I would get to be around, say, very influential writers that are interviewing her. So I would get to ask them, so how was it writing about this person, this artist, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix? Like these are the people that are connected to Buffy. And one of the things that was fascinating was that topic, was that same topic that we just talked about, Lucas, is about mental health, health on the road, and taking care of yourself, like financially. This is like, it's no brainer. You can YouTube musicians on YouTube or like the lives of, and you'll get an understanding as to like what's missing in our musical world. And again, this is a great channel to talk about this. Like, you know, people are getting, we see all of a sudden Spotify, we see the guy that owns Spotify, but we see Spotify and how they rake in a lot of that band talent and right, and that band equity, which should really be the bands. And that's why I think since I've been in the business, Lucas, it's been on my mind, but it's how to get it to every artist that if we actually like took care of these things. And I'm going to bring this up as an Indigenous person, as I think one of your questions you were going to ask me. That's how I kind of incorporated my culture and my teachings into music, is like how to take care of myself spiritually in this madness. And those were the things that I found was missing, just taking care of my health and taking care of my financial self within all that, like I said, within all that influence, because everybody wants to be that, you know, like, and be at the parties and so on and stuff like that. But there's a way to take care of yourself in those things, and to know that you have an influence. That's the one most important thing too, is that you go out there with that grace and power.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of, you know, taking care of yourself and everything, how have you been, you know, it's been very tough as musicians during the COVID-19 pandemic. And my question to you is, what have you done to adapt throughout the pandemic as a musician?
Oh, that is another great question. I think I'm very honored, or whatever the word is. I just feel very blessed, Lucas, that again, I kind of have a very cultural background in ceremonies. And one of those things is to take care of yourself spiritually. So with this time off, I'm not going to lie, it was hard, me as a drummer, to not practice and perform with others. But as a musician, I just got to reflect. And, you know, that's where I got to feel really very, what's the word? I felt for a lot of young players, because I'm like, I'm at a point where I can reflect. And I think, you know, during that time off, I was thinking about things that I really enjoyed doing. And then things that I'm like, well, maybe I didn't feel bad I didn't really feel good at this one gig. And is it the gig, or is it I started to reflect on something. So maybe I could come back after COVID a little bit more, as they say, a little bit more, you know, better in the mind and whatnot, because thank you for bringing that up, Lucas. It's so important. We talked about that when we all first got together with the Buffy project, when the Buffy band got together. It was like how all our energies were a little bit more intense, eh? Just because of the time off, the things that happened in the time off, and not really seeing others. For me, it was a time to reflect, Lucas, and I just kept up my chops. It's hard to play. That was another thing me and Buffy said. It seemed like it got harder for me to, like, I go downstairs and I jump on the drums. I jumped on the drums for like a half a song, and I'm like, I'd just lose interest. And then I hate that. Yeah, but before COVID, I'd be like doing maybe a set, you know, and now it's like a half a song. I'm like, I'm not.
Oh yeah.
But my guitar, I walk around with that. I'm just like, yeah.
Right on. Yeah. No, that's great that you've had the time. I've also, and a lot of musicians we've talked to have said similar things, that it's been great to be able to reflect during this time.
It sure has. I think that's one of the secrets, the spices, the gifts of life is that when you get that time, you know, to yourself, why not just start sitting there and reflect on the good and the learnings, right? The mistakes, right? They're just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So you mentioned you are of Indigenous background, and one question I had for you is at Bandology, we're trying to include Indigenous musicians as part of our to be able to perform as part of our play gig program. So do you have any advice of how we can continue to engage and provide opportunities for Indigenous musicians?
That's a great question. Being Indigenous in background, man, it was so different for me. It was night and day, by the way. So out of high school, I was influenced around a lot of Indigenous players. My band was Indigenous, and then somewhere in early 1990s, I got a call from one of the local bands in Winnipeg, the top cover band of Winnipeg. And that was something important to get that call, especially being Indigenous. I'm like, whoa, this is, the whole community heard about it. I couldn't keep it a secret. So it was different for me, I think, in a lot of ways that I was influenced in mainstream music right from the get-go. Like I was still 17. And then I got to open up for like Canadian acts, Trooper, April Wine, classic rock acts.
Yeah.
And they weren't very classic at the time, but here I am, like I said, Lucas, 17, not even like legally should be in these places. But, my management at the time believed in me. This kid's got skill and he's in the band and they made it work. But bringing it all together, that's a great question for today, because that's where I seen a lot of, I seen that at where we met at the IMC Music Camp in Ontario. And I think that connection, because I got to experience it, like I said, once I got to work with non-Indigenous players, it was just for me, it was just such a treat to learn from them, learn from me, whether they didn't know like more history of their descendants or whatever, whether they didn't know it. It was just beautiful to learn from each other and to hey, it's great to have you in our band, and then like, hey, it's great to call you my band members. And so that's what I'm glad that you mentioned this, because and I think we said before this video that maybe we can continue this. Working with Indigenous players is no different than working with non-Indigenous players. I think it's awesome. There's so much cool things working with Indigenous players that non-Indigenous players don't know. So you can have a band, Lucas, and all of a sudden you're going to America. Well, you're going to have to pay for work visas, right? Well, here's a little cool nugget. Your First Nations musician, he won't have to pay for one because he's a J Treaty. And that's something to learn as a Canadian, learning about First Nations and their treaty territories. So I don't really know the treaty territory. My wife might know better than me because that's her field. Where Oakville is in the treaty territory, but in Winnipeg, we're in Treaty 1. That's where my community is in Treaty 1. It's a big territory. It goes into parts of Ontario. So to understand as a Canadian the treaties, it's not much, but there's a lot of knowledge there, Lucas. And there's like, that's what I'm saying about getting back to financials. Because that's what I learned. Not only that we're, say, you learning at IMC Music Camp, I was learning because a lot of these mentors were very well-known names, as much as my name is well-known, but we were learning off of each other. And when the thing came up about financials, we all talked about how that was so needed. And you can see the different levels of who knew it best. And I got to do a shout out to his name, but Stevie Salas definitely had very high skills in learning about money management. And I think, and then that's what I got to throw in. Well, hey, listen, like if a lot of Canadians understood working with, say, a First Nations guitar player, or and it's not that we're just throwing it out there, but why not give that guy a chance? But then guess what? You not only brought a First Nations player in, you kind of brought an asset into the business side of it, right, Lucas? Because all of a sudden, P2 forms run into the thousands. So all of a sudden, when you guys got some gigs in America, you look at whatever his name is or whatever her name is on your band, and you're like, thank you very much, you know. And then it's great. This one that was I'm glad that Anne Fleming and Sarah McLaughlin, I got to speak to those schools. They were very open about how can we connect more Indigenous artists into just regular programs, you know. So I think it's important. Maybe they're shy. I think they're shy too, you know. But I think coming home to Winnipeg, Manitoba, I just felt like there's a responsibility to be here, and I hope to make those things happen. Because you know, if there's one Indigenous deadly drummer like me out there, I'm sure there's many more little deadly players that maybe Lucas could play with, or anybody, you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing some awesome advice and just some insight and more on the story of how you got involved as an Indigenous musician, playing with non-Indigenous musicians as well.
Yeah, that was, like I said, that was an experience, because not a lot of like Indigenous bands in late 80s or the 1990s are gonna like say what I just did, like open up for April Wine and like all those Canadian acts, you know, and what, like, it was just like, you know, here I am from a town, a reservation, you know, not really the best neighborhood in Winnipeg, but what a way to see a different side of it. And I'd always go back home. I'd always go back to the community, Lucas, going, it's like, it's awesome out there. Like you just got to get good. I'd always tell people that, like, younger, like, or same guys my age and girls, like players in my community, I always say, just have a good level head and play good, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some you've had lots of experiences touring and everything. Is there any some of your favorite moments or experiences that you've had so far in your career?
Oh gosh, you know, the most craziest experience is when, and not that I don't want any artist or musician or artist to do this, but one of the coolest things I found myself is when I'd learned from a different player. So they would send me their songs. I'm in a different artist, so an artist would send me their songs, and I would listen to their songs, and I would try to give myself a lot of time to soak it in. And for some reason, Lucas, I would just kind of like listen to it for a first time. Okay, I got it, or so I think. You know, I put it away, and then it comes like a week leading up to it, or 4 days leading up to it. And my wife caught on to what I do. And I just start pressuring myself day and night, like just drinking their songs and start questioning myself around the house. Oh my gosh, I don't think I can do it. Oh my gosh, what did I just get myself into? And next thing you know, I go and do this gig, whether it's, like I said, like really blues, traditional blues, or this one, I even called the guitar player like 2 days before the gig. I'm doing a lot of Latin beats. I'm like, I don't play this stuff. So I called this beautiful guitar player, Michael. I'm like, Michael, man, I don't think I'm the guy for the gig. And he's like, calm down. Yeah, totally. That's
there you go. Yeah.
That's why I say you don't want to do this, but there's an edge to it. There's like an honesty to it, and there's like you see me really digging into like day and night, like just chopping it down, and then all of a sudden, I go do the gig, and it's the best gig ever. You know, the singer's happy. She's like, "Oh my gosh, my songs have never been amazing." My wife's Danny's in the crowd. She's like, "You did it, yeah." Because sometimes, you just find yourself on a gig where like it's not or you think it's not your feel and genre, but music is music, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a similar experienced recently where, I mean, I've been getting into some more newer genres, and even sometimes like the fact when you I think one of my favorite experiences was when I had never, or even going to like the open mics and meeting these musicians that I've never played with before. And just talking with them about what songs do we want to do, and kind of just like trusting our inner abilities to pull it off. And we do. And then it's like, yes, there we go. We made some beautiful music together. And now we have a bond because we had not met each other before. And now we're playing together. So it's awesome.
You're so right about that. Yes. And then thank you for that. That's exactly what happened with me. And say, like I was just mentioning, where I first noticed it was with this lady I worked with playing Latin music, because that one was a strange one. But you're right. I'd have that bond with her, and we're still friends to this day. Or say from Redbone, the famous "Come and Get Your Love."
Oh yeah,
I just worked with him.
Oh wow.
Years ago. Yeah, again before COVID. And that was a treat again, like anybody watching, Guardians of the Galaxy, their song is on there. That's who I got to work with. Was one of them, one of the writers. And working with Pat Vegas, we did the same thing. I actually told them it was kind of funny. Their management sent me the wrong recording, and they had a different drum version. So yeah, check that out. But because I was so conditioned in late, like getting songs late, I was a pro at it. But so there I was, I'm learning this, their song, Come and Get Your Love, but it was a different beat. So our first rehearsal comes and I'm playing it, and the bass player was also the manager, and he's like, whoa, that's the wrong beat. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's the one you sent me. And then I played the song. I'm like, well, I checked my phone. I'm like, and then he looks at Pat Vegas, the writer, and now they're both like rolling their heads, like, they sent me the wrong song, and they were going to call the rehearsal. Oh, they were ready to call it. And I'm like, no, wait. I said, let me listen to the other one. Like you just let me listen to it a couple times. So I said, just take a 5-minute break. So there I was in the corner, Lucas, listening to this new jam. The pressure's on, right? I said, okay, that's it. I put the inners back in. I said, let's start it. Boom, boom, yeah. And
that's
awesome.
And
we slayed it. You could see Pat Vegas's happiness. And after we were done, it's just like you said, there was a bond all of a sudden, like this excitement, this nervousness, and then we rocked it. And then all of a sudden, everybody just they're like a bond of like a pack,
Yeah, I remember. You mentioned it was awesome faculty, and I learned so much from you at IMC, and we were chatting about that earlier, and it was so cool. I remember watching you and Mike Siracusa, and also Chuck Keeping was also from the drummer from Big Wreck there. So I remember watching you guys, and you were about to go on stage, the faculty rock, and you guys were playing like, I think, some song maybe, and it might have been Superstition actually, or one song, and you guys were kind of you had I watched you guys, and you had like a phone up to your ear, and you were like listening, and then you went up, you played on stage, and you guys killed it, and it was so awesome. So
I so remember that. And
yeah, it's the best way to do it, is just like quickly listen to the tune before the gig and then show up and play it.
And then just give it all you got. Exactly. And that was it. I'm glad you remember that, because so many others send me that message saying, Michel, or Manu, they'll be like, I still remember you listening to a tune, and then you went up and slayed it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The best. Those are just so fun, many memories and opportunity, and it's the best way to do it, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, I've done it that traditional way where you really learn that song right up into the gig, and I don't know. I just like I said, there's just two different vibes and energy. Just like you said, like they feel that excitement and they feel that nervousness, and then when you're feeling that you're doing it right, well, then you're adding in some.
And you start getting into it. Yeah, you're looking at them. Is it good? And then you start, and you're like, okay, we're good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like, is this all good? Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Awesome. And so being a faculty at IMC, and it's great to inspire young musicians like you helped inspire me to continue playing drums. And with Bandology, we also like to do with that as well, as provide those opportunities for musicians. And we do that through music education, we think is very, very important. So my question to you is, why is music education important to you?
Why is music education important to me? I still think it is. I talk to musicians today about that era, the 80s and the 90s, how it was just very abundant back in that time, as you must know too. And that's why what my subject is when I get around those type of circles, when I'm around the musicians, the IMC mentors, I talk about music in a way that, like, look at how educational it is for us that we're together and we're passing down the puck. But I said, you know what's missing about, I think that beautiful music acknowledgement and where things went a little bit missing, and I think why it's very important, music education, is what I was saying to what I was talking about earlier. I didn't learn this until much later, Lucas. Like that, when you learn music, I wish I would have learned that when I learned how to play drums, like I said, I was sent right out there, 17 years old, boom, I'm out there in the world and I'm getting a paycheck, and all of a sudden it's pretty good at the time. But what I was lacking was I was lacking music knowledge. I was lacking the business side of it. This is what Buffy taught me a lot, the business side of it. You really have to be stern on talking to your players about the business side of it. It's very important. I think that every band member is in it and understands that what they put in, you know, and I think that's why I want to get into that. I want to get into either being a part of a music program here. We got a thing called Rock Camp or Camp Rock, similar in Winnipeg, or open up, like, or even be influenced to open up a music sort of program. And that's one of the things that I have written down, like it's in my journals, that I want musicians to really take control of it. It's just for too long, Lucas, that like I come from the era of tapes and CDs, and these are where we had to hustle and sell tapes, believe it or not. And now it's gone so, like, and then I love technology too. Like I watched the whole Napster and Lars Ulrich go at it, you know. But at the same time, I was embracing it. Yeah, I remember that. But I wasn't, and I was like, well, it's here. Like, music is gonna, like, look at us. Me and Lucas are connecting around, like, you know, and the changes that happen. Now that's what I think that's missing in that music education that I was talking about. It's always been there, the learning of the G's, the structure of rudiments on drums, and you'll see it within the room, the influences of how you're going to act, or you'll get mentors of how it is out there. But what's lacking, hey Lucas, is that acknowledgement of how to make it a business and to make money from it, because it's always out there. But we incur these new things every decade: Napster, Spotify, and so on and so on. And it's just the artists, and we'll also see, like, they only make by I don't know offhand, but we're gonna mention, I think it's pennies, you know. That's what the artists. Yeah, so, you know, that's why I just love to sit in a room with a conference of all musicians saying, did you just hear what I said? Like, this has been in my mind for 30 plus years since I've been a musician. Like, what's lacking, really? Not my talent, really, no. Not my charisma to hang with players, no, that's not lacking. What's lacking? My knowledge and how to really make it like my office, my business. And to appreciate both sides, to put that hat on and like we said, to trigger off that excitement, that nervousness, you know, and that I'm a player, but to also put that hat down and put the other hat on, and you are, and that comes with responsibility. Like, you want to be paid for that. Okay, well, let's talk financials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that expression. I've heard it from many different, like musicians, good musicians wear many multiple hats, right?
So right. You're so right. I think John taught me that as well. And John, I just love as a mentor myself. I'd always speak to him about that like these types of things, because me and him knew. And he, you know, good old John, right? He would tell me that we don't need to talk music. And I'm like, I love you, John. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like 50, someone also, it's like, it seems like, or a good mentor of mine actually said, one of the guys, that in music business, the bigger word is business. And there's like 50, you know, there's 50-50, or almost, I would argue more, it's almost more important to focus on the business side than it is sometimes on the musical aspect of it all. Because if you work so hard on the music part, which is so important, but do nothing towards business side, it's tough, right?
It's so true. You just nailed it all. What you just nailed about not making it enough of the business side of it. We've had a mentor at the IMC Music Camp, Phil X. And then you can go to, and you can go to YouTube, and there's a show called Hired Guns, and you'll me and Lucas is talking about here today. You will hear that in a lot of those artists about what's missing, and I'm glad I'm glad we're talking about this on, because that was one of the greatest things. Like I said, sitting with, say, John T. or Buffy, Sainte-Marie, you know, sitting with those old greats, because they were those are kind of like our elders, right? So that's why I wanted to pick their head. I'm like, John, what do you think was missing back in your day? And me and him nailed it. Wish we just knew a little bit more of how to control it, you know, my control my things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that piece about why music is important to you. And I guess I have one more last official question, then we're going to do something fun at the end that we like to do with all of the interview guests. But so my last official question to you is, do you have any just last minute advice for any young players, any young musicians out there that might be interested in pursuing a career in music?
Oh, yeah, I guess I would just say is is to never be closed into like what we're talking about today. Never be closed into thinking that you're just come from one genre. Always branch yourself out to learn and experience other players. Test your mental ability and your talents and your ears. Listen to other music. I listen to different types of music, and I train myself in that way. So if there's anything that I want to pass on is adapt music to what you're doing, bike riding, zone time, zen time, or whatever it is in your room time. Pick certain genres to grasp onto. Like, I just never knew that I'd like things like jazz and metal. And you know, I was strictly into a rock zone at one time, but no. Then it was blues, and then it was Latin music, and so on and so on. And then, you know, just because I just figured to keep yourself open. And as we said earlier, Lucas as well, advice is to always be very open and learn to, what's that word? Learn to know what your worth is, know your abilities, your worth. Be open about financials with who you work with, and in your band. Those are the things that split up bands, and those are the things that make artists disgruntled. Why I've heard these things over in my 30 years, and I find myself to just I'm so grateful, like I said, that I got to learn from older ones. Just keep it cool and open. Ask for these things, or be open about what am I making, you know, things like that. you know, and try to make it fun. That's another important thing about how you get hired. A lot of it is definitely being a great musician. I think I learned this from Steve Gadd, but a lot of it too is being a great person.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that insight. And it's so important for sure. All the points that you just said.
Thank you so much, Lucas.
All right, so I got one more quick little thing, and this is what we call the Fast Five questions.
Oh God!
So
I better get my fast, because you know when we go fast,
oh yeah, there you go.
I gotta get ready. Okay, for the.
All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Okay.
Here we go. First question: what is your favorite movie soundtrack?
Last Action Hero.
Nice. What movie is that from?
Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's got like AC/DC.
Yeah, there you go.
Games. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. A Last Action Hero. I was blown away by the movie, but then I went back and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Nice. How about instrument you wish you played?
Guitar.
Yeah, me too.
You too.
Me too. Yeah. What's your what's your hidden talent?
My hidden talent. Cooking.
Right on. What's your favorite meal to cook? Side note, but
my favorite meal to cook, ribs.
Oh, I love ribs. Yeah, good choice.
That's one I'm like, I get excited for that one.
How about your dream vacation?
Oh gosh, dream vacation. Man, dream vacation is anywhere where the water's like turquoise blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywhere where it's turquoise blue, but I love that snow. I love our seasons in Canada, but if I can sit somewhere and put my feet in the sand and see turquoise blue water, I'm sold. Hawaii, Bahamas, don't matter where.
I miss the Caribbean a lot. Can't wait to go back.
I never been. My wife.
Oh really? Oh
my
yeah.
wife wants to take me there. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
That when I actually mentioned it, Lucas, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, one day I'm gonna get there. And
you will. You'll get down there. The dream gig as a drummer, I think for me, at least as a drummer, I want to play at an all-inclusive. That would be amazing. Playing music right on the beach. Yeah, that's it. That's where I want to be.
I bet when you see the bands there, you're like, no, that's the one. That's the gig.
That's the gig, yeah. And last but certainly not least, what's your favorite concert you've attended?
Hands down. I'm going to say hands down, and they influenced me right after that. Iron Maiden. Oh,
yeah, that would be good. Where'd you see them?
I seen them here in Winnipeg at the old barn. Power Slave was the tour, and I think I was 16, 14, whatever. I think 1984. Yeah, 1984 they came through here. Wow. And I saw Power Slave, and I tell you, Lucas, a Twisted Sister opened up, and I never seen a band play that fast metal and just sound so clear. Nickel McBrain killing it on drums, Bruce Dickinson, and I just looked at my dad, and I remember like saying, I want to be a rock star. Iron Maiden, hands down. I seen Metallica too a few times after that, and they were close, but man, Iron Maiden was just something else.
Iron Maiden.
Nice.
Rock on. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michel, for joining us today. It was great to hear some of your insight into your background in music and providing some awesome advice for young musicians and players.
Thank you very much, Lucas, for having me. Bandology, I wish all you guys the best, and please stay in touch.
All right, we will for sure. All right, take care.
Peace. Thank you very much, Lucas.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, you can learn more about our organization at bandology.ca, which features information about music education, advocacy and research, and our Play a Gig and Bandcamp programs. Follow us on social media for more videos, performance, and interviews on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.